He laid down his weapon and took off his helmet as a sign of respect. In this dirt-poor village in Afghanistan, he was part of a military unit whose job it was to rebuild an infrastructure devastated by war. He was there to build schools, dig wells, build roads. It was March 4th, 2006, and nothing suggested that this day would be any different than the 49 previous days of his deployment in Afghanistan. Until he was struck on the head by a young man wielding an axe that cleaved his head open and sliced his brain in two. His platoon commander was sure he was dead, but miraculously, he was still breathing, life oozing out of him with every shallow breath. It would be a miracle if he survived. His name is Trevor Greene. Captain Trevor Greene was airlifted to an American military hospital in Germany. His wife Debbie and baby daughter Grace flew to his bedside. Doctors told Debbie that Trevor would likely die. If he didn't, he would likely never regain consciousness, and if by some miracle he did, he would be in a vegetative state for the rest of his life. He was in a medically induced coma and endured multiple surgeries to remove bone from his brain. Part of his skull was removed to relieve the pressure as his brain swelled. He had a tracheotomy. He was transferred to Vancouver General Hospital. Debbie was told that Trevor would never truly recover, and she should find a care facility for him and walk away. But that's not the woman Trevor married. Long days praying and hoping, long nights wondering and dreading, and then one day, a miracle. Trevor's eyes opened, and Debbie saw the man she loved. The injuries were severe and profound, but he was still there, still alive, still fighting. Little by little, his wakefulness increased. Little by little, the man who had been gone for so long began his journey home. Trevor almost died 4 times from infection, but finally, almost 1 year after the attack, Trevor was medically stabilized and moved to a center for brain injury in Alberta. And then the real work began. Words cannot describe the difficulty regaining motor function after debilitating brain injury. The process was slow, tedious, and painful, and was accompanied by a suffocating depression. The prognosis was never positive. They were never given reason to hope. Doctors considered the extent of his injuries and told Trevor and Debbie that Trevor would never walk again. But those doctors had considered the injuries, but they had not considered the man. And Trevor Greene is not a man who likes to fail, in spite of the overwhelming odds stacked against him. For Captain Trevor Greene, the war had just begun. Step by painful step, Trevor's speech began to improve. His motor skills slowly returned, and an operation helped increase mobility in his feet. Debbie and Trevor began talking about a wedding date, and Trevor's goal was to marry Debbie standing up. 14 months after arriving in Alberta, he and Debbie and Grace finally moved home. A beautiful house overlooking the water in Nanaimo. With Debbie, Trevor began writing a book about his experiences in Afghanistan. He began speaking to school children and at symposiums for peace. In May of 2009, he traveled to Halifax to give his first major speech aimed at building public interest in social and economic aid to Afghanistan. He met with the Afghan community in Ontario and the Consul General of Afghanistan to advocate economic and educational development in their country. He gave numerous speeches across the country talking about brain injury and his profound hope that Afghanistan will know peace in his lifetime. There is a laundry list of awards and honors he has received that we could mention, a resume full of speaking engagements that he has made. But what you should know above all else is that on July 24th, 2010, Trevor Greene married Debbie Lepore in her sister's beautiful backyard near their home in Nanaimo, standing on his own 2 feet. And that defines not only this man, but the very essence of the courage to come back.